I like Hololive. I also like Warhammer. So what if I were to combine the two? Introducing Project Holohammer, where I draw every Hololive member as if they existed in the world of Warhammer. Last time I did all of Myth, so naturally this time I'm gonna cover Council and Iris. Council is, or Promise. Does Promise include Sana? I know how hard it does, but sadly it doesn't on the website. Anyway, for Myth I kept them all basically human, but for Council Wiz I decided to go a bit crazier, maybe a bit too crazy for some. I hope you'll enjoy what I came up with. Let's start with the most obvious Hololive member to turn into a Warhammer character, Bay. She is a rat and she represents chaos, so Skaven jokes have been a thing since forever. Now the big question was whether to keep her human face or go full rat. As you can see, I chose the latter because it is way funnier. After that decision, it really just came down to converting her outfit into armor, which was surprisingly straightforward for the most part. I did have to tweak certain elements a bit, but there wasn't too much of a struggle with Bay. I turned the bow on her tail into a tail blade, the two plushies on her hips into colored rat skulls, and of course I put Mr. Squeaks on her head. Bay doesn't really have a special weapon as far as I know, so I just gave her a generic Skaven halberd spear thing. When it came to the colors, I wasn't sure if I should go full brightness or make them look all rusted and dirty. As a compromise, I made the armor itself more muted, but kept brighter colors for the rest of the outfit. It occurs to me that I didn't really include her dice motif, which is very ironic considering this is Warhammer of all things. And that's Bay the Skaven Warlord. The red face makes it look a lot sillier than the rest, but I love her for it. The other members won't go this far off the rails, except for Ronald. We'll save that one for last. Next up is Iris. Iris is a Nephilim, half angel and half demon. First up, that's not actually what a Nephilim is. They are actually biblical giants who are half angel and half human. Secondly, angels don't really exist in Warhammer, so I kinda ignored that part and just went full demon. Specifically, I made her a Herald of Slaanesh. Makes sense, right? She's pink, Gabairis is a thing, and during Space Marine 2 she mentioned that she found Slaanesh very interesting, which was itself a Gabairis moment. Now technically, Hope falls under Zinz's domain, so that doesn't really work, but semantics. I originally made her outfit look closer to her model's dress, but that didn't really work, so I redrew it completely. Sadly, the final outfit ended up covering a lot of her cool demon legs and her tail, so that's a bummer. I also wasn't really sure on how to do her eyes, since demonettes have fully black eyes without pupils, but Iris has very prominent heterochromia. In the end, I decided to just give her black sclera while keeping the pupils. Also, I turned her crystal wings into spikes coming out of her shoulders. Despite its reputation, her hair wasn't actually that hard to draw, which was a relief. And that's Iris, the Herald of Slaanesh. I thought this one would also be very straightforward, but she turned out to be a bit more complicated than anticipated. Moving on to Crony. Crony went from not sure what to do to really obvious the moment I remembered she's meant to be a snake. The fact she got a Medusa costume for Halloween also helped. So yeah, I made her a Bloodwrack Medusa. It fits perfectly considering their lore is being punished for thinking they were more beautiful than the gods, which is a very Crony thing to do. While Iris was more complicated than I thought, this one I knew would be tough. There isn't really one particular element that made it hard. The whole sketching process just felt a lot more intense for this one. I kinda combined both her normal outfit and the Medusa costume, while also trying to make it look like what the Bloodwrack Medusas wear, most notably the clawed gauntlet. I actually had to switch up her snake head to make the pose work for that. Since Bloodwrack Medusas usually wield spears, I combined both of Crony's clock swords into one weapon. This thing makes her art way bigger than the others, and that's in addition to already being larger due to being monstrous infantry. During coloring, I initially gave her normal eyes, but towards the end I decided to redo them so they look more snake-like. And that's Quoni the Bloodwrack Medusa. She looks super crazy and evil, which I'm sure some people will really love. Unfortunately, I can't really fit the whole art in here with the text due to how dang long her spear is. Oh well. Now we sadly move on to the graduated half of the members, starting with Fauna. Obviously Fauna was gonna be Wood Elf related. Now I could have just made her a regular elven spell singer, but I much preferred the idea of making her a spooky dryad, specifically a branch wave. Turning all the members into monsters has been the recurring theme so far after all. Since she's all wood, I couldn't really make her wear her dress or use any parts of the design as is. Instead I used roots and leaves to replicate the various design elements and details of her outfit as best as I could. One detail I particularly thought was neat was covering her left leg in birch bark to evoke the white legging she wears. Speaking of the bark color, I wasn't really sure how dark I should make her. Fauna is pretty pale while wearing a white dress, so she's usually pretty bright, but I felt a darker color fit the theme better. I also tried to make something like a wood texture, but I don't think it turned out all that well. You don't really notice it much unless you really zoom in. Also, it's not included in the time-lapse, but I had to redo her entire line art because the first time I drew it I had the canvas at the wrong resolution. So that was fun. And that's Fauna the Branch Wave. While I said she would be a spooky dryad, in the end she still looks pretty friendly all things considered. Alright, on to Mumei. I was kinda stuck on this one. There isn't really any Warhammer unit with an owl motif. I thought about making her a Lawmaster at one point, cause it kinda fit the civilization theme, plus it would make Crofronmei the elven trio, but I abandoned that. The real solution came when I remembered her Civ 5 streams where she played as the Vikings. And so I made her a Chaos Marauder, eternally wandering the Chaos Wastes. It fits surprisingly well, especially since she has Norse runes as a design element. Granted, this does mean that she destroys civilizations rather than guarding them, but we all know that is in fact what she was doing anyway. Mumei the Barbarian was pretty straightforward once I had the concept. I did wonder whether to put Hootsie or the scary face on her shield, but in the end I went for Hootsie, while the scary face is a skull she wears on her belt as a trophy. During coloring I then tried to make the shield look very weathered and all. Of course I also added Friend, though since paper bags don't exist in Warhammer, he is a floating piece of cloth instead. I thought about adding a giant ice wolf to represent animal, but in the end I thought that might be too much. And that's Mumei the Chaos Marauder. She looks surprisingly normal compared to the others, which in a way is fitting for Mumei, but perhaps I didn't go far enough with this one. And finally, there's Sana, which is where I went a bit off the rails. The simple and obvious choice would have been to make her a celestial wizard, but that felt too basic. I went crazy with the others, so Sana can't just be a regular wizard. Then I had a very silly idea. What if I made her a Slann? Sana is big after all, so making her a giant magic space frog feels weirdly fitting. Plus Yatagarasu can be the little skink that always accompanies a Slann. There are of course some problems. Slann don't wear clothes and don't have hair, so how do you include those elements? For her clothes, I decided to make them colorful skin patterns instead. Meanwhile, her hair would be represented through the design of a palanquin. Her palanquin also includes carvings of her limiter, the little sea creatures in her hair, and of course the face of Bread Dog. The final sketch I thought looked great, but it didn't really look like Sana. This was kind of a big problem, but I hoped this would be fixed once I added colors. Trust the process and all that. So does the final art read as Sana? I let you decide. And that's Sana the Slan Mage Priest. Maybe I did take things a bit too far with this one, but the idea sounded fun in my head and I really wanted to go for it, so I'm happy with the final product. And with that, all of Count Silwith is done. What do you think? Do you like the more monstrous looks, or do you think I went too far? How would you have redesigned Count Silwith within the Warhammer world? Tell me in the comments. The next episode will be about Advent, so you can look forward to that. Since they are the villains of Halloween, they'll all be chaos related. I got pretty concrete ideas for most of them, but I'm open for suggestions. So if you think you have the perfect idea, be that for Advent or any other generation, let me know. I hope you enjoyed this and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Sorry it took so long. I was busy with other stuff and there was some unfortunate timing issues. I'm also still figuring out this format. I'm kinda struggling to talk enough to fill up the time lapses. Hopefully you don't mind. Like and subscribe, I guess. Bye.